Hello, and welcome to another sidebar with Mike, not with Cody. And I swear Cody eventually will do one of these, but his schedule right now is way busier than mine. I've got more free time than he does, so we weren't recording an episode this week. I had the sort of urge to record what I'm about to record here, or what I'm about to talk about here, so you got another one with me. Sorry. I would love for Cody to do one on his own, but time permits as it does. So I'm back with another sidebar. I'm back with another ranking of an artist and their discography. Yes, I know I've done this for every sidebar so far, and I'll probably keep doing it for most of my sidebars. One, it gives me an opportunity to talk about an artist that I adore. And especially in the case of this one, this is likely an artist we're not going to talk about on Album Fight Club in terms of like the general podcast. Not that there's not a matchup that can work here, but it just doesn't quite feel right, at least from my perspective. I wouldn't match up really any of these records, and I'll get into why that is when I start talking about them. But this is an artist I have adored ever since I first heard the band. And if you've seen the title at this point, you already know what I'm going towards. And if you have seen the title, you might question to yourself, wow, really? That group, that person, that thing? Yeah. So what I'm talking about today is not only the woman, but the band known as Sade. Of course, the woman in question is Sade Adu, the lead vocalist. But the first thing I want to get out of the way is that the common misconception behind Sade is that Sade does all her albums and she's the vocalist, but on every album she just finds random musicians like backup band members. It's not the case whatsoever. And it's an unfortunate misconception of the band because not only is Sade a titan of vocalism, but like the band that backs her up, my God, are they good on every single record. And they've been basically the same guys for the entire career of the band. Regrettably, Dave Early, who was the drummer for the first four records, passed away in the late 90s. So obviously they had to get a replacement at that point. But Stuart Matthewman on guitar, Paul Denman on bass, and Andrew Hale on keys have been there for every record. They've been on every record, and they have murdered every record. The instrumentation on these records are killer. But of course, what the band is known for is their vocalist, Sade, who, this is not hyperbole. You know, sometimes I'll make lofty claims on Album Fight Club, and this is not in any way taken as hyperbole. This is my irredisputable opinion and fact on this viewpoint. I believe in my heart of hearts that Sade Adu is not only the most underrated female vocalist of all time, but she is the greatest female vocalist of all time in the history of recording music. I know, I said it, I'm not taking it back. I will die on this hill gladly. Sade Adu is just everything. Now, obviously, there's plenty of female vocalists we can talk about and say, oh, they're better. Like, obviously. And they've got more pedigree. And they've got a greater legacy. And they'll appear on a Rolling Stone top 100 female vocalists way before Sade will. I'll give you all of that. But man, when it comes to my musical taste and it comes to my listening experience, there is just nothing like Sade in these 6 records that I'm about to talk about. It's something about her voice. It's unique. It's sultry, it's sexy, it's just like everything it needs to be on every track she's ever recorded. It's just, I don't know, man. Like, it's one of those things where when I first heard her, I think it was in college, I probably heard Smooth Operator on the radio at some point, but just kind of passed it off. When I really dove into her music, which was sometime in my college experience, it was an immediate, like, affluent affection of like, this band and this woman just have my whole heart and soul, and they've had my whole heart and soul forever. One of the few artists, truly one of the few artists, where if she announced a tour tomorrow, I would go anywhere in America to see it. I would, especially because if she announced a tour tomorrow, it would probably be the farewell tour. I don't know if they're going to do a farewell tour. I would love for them to do it. I'd probably pay a large amount to go see it. But the thing is, part of the reason I'm doing this is because I have all 6 Sade records on vinyl. Apparently, there's supposed to be a 7th, and at some point prior to COVID, or maybe during COVID, I don't remember, one of the band members, I forget who, said they were working on the 7th album. And in fact, the reason I have all the Sade records is because they released a box set of the vinyl records called This Far a few years ago at this point. And in the box set, there was this like foam insert that was about the size of a vinyl casing record. And when you took it out, it had a giant question mark on it. So you had the 6 Sade records, You have this giant foam black insert with a giant question mark on it, and the box set is called This Far. What else does that mean other than there's a 7th album in the works? But again, that collection came out a while ago. That comment that they were working on the album came out a while ago. I don't know if they're working on a 7th record. Honestly, I don't really need a 7th record. I would love a 7th record, but I don't really see it happening. I unfortunately also don't see a tour happening. I kind of just see them phasing out, regrettably, which is regrettable because obviously I'm going to talk this band to the moon. But yeah, it is what it is. Luckily, we have 6 records from this group. They might be the only 6 we ever have, but if they are, I don't give a damn because these 6 records are phenomenal. This is not a situation like Metallica or Slayer where when I get to number 6, I'm just going to shit all over it, right? Reload is awful. Repentless is awful. None of these records are awful. In fact, at worst, the number 6 album, it's like borderline great. I usually fluctuate between good and great when it comes to the 6th one, but 5 and up are like fantastic to literally perfection. So yeah, I've sort of introduced my thoughts on this. I'll obviously boil more of it down as we get through, but let's just get right to the ranking. And I hate that I have to put somebody at number 6, but ever since I've listened to this band, this has kind of always been my number 6. It's never really rose higher than 6. And again, something has to be at the bottom, but even so, Soldier of Love is a fantastic record. It's not even like mediocre. It's great to it's good to great, I'll say. This is the most recent one. This one, again, I think came out in 2010, if I'm not mistaken. So it's been like 13 years since they released a record, which is, again, the whole thing of like, are they really going to release another record? I don't really see it. But anyway, it's kind of unfortunate that the most recent record that was released is also the weakest, in my opinion. It's just kind of how it is. And that sort of plays up the idea of like, oh, you know, if they release a 7th record, it's going to be bad because they're losing their touch and they're losing their momentum. I don't know, dude. Their track record, this showcases that they haven't lost anything. If anything, they just haven't quite hit the magic of the first couple records, but they still have magic playing throughout this whole thing. Even the fact that at this late in their career, they're making music this good, it's mind-boggling because, you know, there's some bands out there who have needed to retire for a long time and they're still making albums for whatever reason. I don't know why. If the 7th record is as good as this, give it to me now. Release it. I'll buy it up. I'll go to the concert. I'll buy the merch. I'll do whatever. Beside the point. So Soldier of Love. Another unfortunate thing about this record is that the 2 most well-known songs are the 2 first songs on the record. And again, unfortunately, I think they're just the 2 best songs on the record, those being Moon in the Sky and the title track, Soldier of Love. They've just always been my favorites. They're the most popular songs off the record for a reason. There's a reason they were the singles. They're just kind of the best. The other single on here was Baby Father. And believe it or not, that's actually my least favorite song on this record. It's very, it's not the Sade I like, which is to say that the Sade on Baby Father is a little too bubbly. It kind of sounds like a Regina Spektor or a Colby Calais song. And nothing against those two, but like, it just doesn't sound like a Sade song, if that makes any sense. And if you know Sade, you probably hear Baby Father and like hear what I'm talking about. It's, you know, as a single, it's fine. It's not a terrible song. I don't like turn it off when I hear it, but it's also a song that like, it's at the bottom of the barrel for me in terms of this record and much of Sade's career. It's one of my least favorite Sade songs. But even beyond that, I mean, you get to something like Morning Bird, which is the 3rd song. And one thing that Sade nails, both her and the band, is just like making hauntingly beautiful music. And I mean hauntingly. It's like just the way they make a soundscape sound just sort of grim and moody and dark. And yet, in spite of that, it's like beautiful at the same time and like so divine. And I'm throwing out these huge words and it sounds incorrect, but then I think about it for a second. I'm like, no, that's exactly how I would explain it. It's divine. Much of Sade's work is absolutely divine, especially when you can go from a song like Morning Bird, go to Baby Father, again, not my favorite, but then you get to like The Long Hard Road, which you sort of like, it's not the prior song of Baby Father, which is more upbeat, very up tempo. Long Hard Road is like slow. It's plodding. It's methodical, and I love it. She can play or she can keep up with the fast stuff. They can clearly hit the low stuff and the slow stuff, and it's just like great all the time. It's always so good. Um, Another song I'm not a huge fan of on the record is "Be That Easy." It's a little too country for me. And if you play the song, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's that like sort of like Sunday morning country song. We've all heard it. It's a little too country vibey. I don't hate it. I don't hate anything on this record or in her entire career. It's just kind of a song that's just like, okay, like I love that she's on it. I like it more than most country songs I hear, but it still gives me that vibe of like, this sounds a little too country. I'm not a huge fan. But from Be That Easy gets to Bring Me Home and On, just like fantastic closing to record. Bring Me Home, amazing. In Another Time, we get the sax appearance on the record, which I'll go off about the sax and Sade when we get to later records on this list. But Skin, another thing too, is the lyricism in all these songs. The lyrics in Skin are A+. Just the idea of like losing a lover or getting rid of a lover and like washing them off your skin because you've been so close with them. You've been so intimate with them. Not that that's the most complex version of love and romance, but like just the way she talks about it and the way she sings it is just mwah, it's chef's kiss every time. And then we get Safest Place, the closing track, which again is that hauntingly beautiful thing we had with the Morning Bird song. It's just great. I always go back and forth with this record of, is it good or is it great? In the moment right now, I'm talking up, I'm hyping it up. I'm going to say it's great. Tomorrow I may re-listen to it and go, yeah, it's good. It's not great. It's definitely the most conflicted of any of the records in Sade's catalog. It's the one I'm the most like on the fence about. But my on the fence is it between good or great? It's not like, is this bad or is it like decent? You know, if your weakest record is just good, like that's pretty high marks. That's pretty high achievement. But it is my least favorite for sure. Whether I think it's good or great, it's definitely, I think, the weakest of the bunch. And then from there, we get, from here on out, just great records. These are great. I think all of them have merit. All of them have stuff that is of quality. Some stuff on the records, they're kind of like middle of the road, whatever, but for the majority, it's great. And that starts with Lovers Rock, which is the second to last. So this is the fifth album in their sort of timeline, whereas Soldier of Love was the sixth. So you may think I'm just working my way backwards. You'll quickly realize that's not what I'm doing, although kind of, but not really. This is where the hiatus came in, where at the end of the 90s, again, Dave died. Was the band going to keep going? Were they going to make any more music? They lost a core member, an original founding member. And eventually around 2001, I think, I could be misquoting this here, but in 2001, they released Lovers Rock. And man, what a comeback, my dude. You start the record off with By Your Side, and immediately, just right into it, just the instrumentation starts, Sade starts singing, and whatever doubt you had in your mind, it's gone. Or at least that's how I see it. It's just immediately wiped away because they are still in the game. They're still on the groove. Yes, it sucks that Dave's not here, but at least we still have more music from Sade. Flow, really interesting second song, which is not the expectation. It's very Western vibes sounding. Sounds like something you would hear in an old saloon in the West and like the tumbleweed rolling across the desert. It's cool though, man. Like again, it's that sort of like the virtuosity of this band and of Sade herself is just like it almost seems like they could be on anything and they would just slaughter it. They would just kill it every time. Flow is a great example of that. And then you get the run of King of Sorrow, Somebody Already Broke My Heart, and for me at least, All About Our Love, which, I mean, I don't really, if you know this group, if you know this album, I don't really need to say a lot about King of Sorrow or Somebody Already Broke My Heart. They're like two mega singles off this record for good reason. They're really good. But then you get to All About Our Love, which what really does, what I think, I'm fumbling over my words here. Each Sade record has a vibe to me and a very clear vibe. And maybe that's playing into the idea of her like being on this yellow backdrop. It looks like a sunset. This album is total beach sunset vibes, my man. Like you throw this on and you're sitting on the coast. The sun is setting in the distance. It's just you and your partner. You've got drinks in your hand. This whole album is just like sunset vibes and it just nails it. And a song like All About Our Love, it's like I'm right there. Like I'm sitting in my living or my kitchen. dining room. I don't even know. I lived here for over a year. I don't even know what this room is technically called. I'm sitting in my dining room right now, and I hear All About Our Love, and immediately I'm transported right to the beach in sunset, and it's like a cool 70 degrees out, and it's just like that's the beauty of music. It can transport you, and so much of Sade's music just like transports me every single time. And that's just the first like half of the album. We still got a whole half to go. Now, Slave Song does close the first half of this record, and the instrumental on Slave Song is so like, it's just so good. It's so like evocative. And I'll say this numerous times here, but Sade knows when to just let the band go forth. Like Sade knows she's got a killer voice. She knows she's the face of the band. And yet in spite of that, she can just go, you know what? On this song, I'm just going to let the guys do it until she eventually comes in on the song. But the guys can just hold their own. And so many times in the career, they hold their own every time. So then we get to the other side of the record. I'm not going to go off on every single song because I think we'd be here for hours, but it's another case of Baby Father, where the one song in this record that I've never really cared for is Immigrant. And I'm not entirely sure why. It's the one song where I'm just kind of like, okay, it's cool, it's whatever. I'm not moved by this in any way. It doesn't transport me anywhere. It's just kind of a song that's taking up the track list, but I still enjoy it. I don't skip it, but it's clearly my least favorite song. And then we get Lovers Rock after that. We go from like the low of the album to, for me at least, the high. Lovers Rock, the title track. God, again, that sunset beach vibe, and her performance and the instrumentation and the lyrics and the chorus. Oh my God, the chorus. It's so good. Everything is just so good about it. And then you get to It's Only Love That Gets You Through. I forgot I usually call it Only Love, but it's got a full name. And then a church organ comes in, and it's like, where are we now? Right? There's just like a church on the other side of the sand dunes here, and we're going into it and getting married or something. I don't know, but the way that she just sings over the piano and the organ on this track is just, God, it's so good, and it's a great closer, and it's a great album, and it's just an album I can throw on at any time and be totally transported. I can throw it on any time, and just suddenly my mood shifts to a more positive one. I love it. And it's only number 5, right? And that's the hard part of this, is that I love all of these records. Soldier of Love, I like. Lovers Rock and On, I love these records. So the idea of putting this in number 5 really sucks. But there's just 4 better ones, in my opinion. And so we get to the portion of Sade's career where it was the full lineup, where they had all members and were producing, in my opinion, their best quality. And that starts with their third record, Stronger Than Pride. I'm destined to say that this might be a perfect record, but maybe not. I don't know if it's perfect. A couple of these that are about to come up are kind of perfect, but this one I think is quite on the edge of it. Not quite there, but kind of there. It's fourth because for me, where the big songs really hit, the not so huge songs don't quite hit for me. But they have a tendency to do like their biggest songs right out of the gate, especially in their early portions of their career. And they usually call it the Sade Triad, or at least that's what I call it. You've got a hell of a Sade Triad out of the gate with Love Is Stronger Than Pride, Paradise, and Nothing Can Come Between Us. Like, those first 3 songs just in tandem back to back. How can you not like this record? Those could just be the songs. Like, you could just get rid of everything else. I wouldn't love it, but you could get rid of everything else and I'd be like, yeah, this is a pretty great record or great EP or whatever it is. Again, they're the 3 biggest songs on this record. If you know Sade at all, I don't really know what to say other than they're amazing songs, especially Paradise. Like, God, the instrumental, the vocals, the like everything I've already said about previous songs is just applied to much of these other songs as well. Yeah. Ironically, Haunt Me, the 4th song, very haunting, but again, very beautiful. They know how to make a dark, moody song and yet make it also make you feel emotional things that aren't exactly like detrimental or negative. They're kind of like positive and uplifting despite the sort of dark mood of it. It's amazing. Probably my favorite, like, not hugely popular Sade song, or at least the most underrated song for me, is Turn My Back on You, the closing for the first side of this, which, yeah, it's super repetitive and it kind of like drags its feet because it seems longer than it should be. But man, do I love that instrumental. And then the way she approaches the vocals in the chorus and throughout the song, I don't know. It is repetitive. I'll give you that, but I adore it. I love every second of it. Wouldn't condense it at all, honestly. Then you get to the second half, which some artists, they throw the not as popular songs in the second half, and you certainly get that here. A lot of the second half is the least popular songs on here, but the thing about Sade and a lot of great bands is that the second half isn't the side that's like forgotten about. It still produces great music. There's still quality here, and you get Keep Looking and Give It Up on the second half, which the vibes on these songs, like, god damn it, like the vibes are so good. And she, the title, or rather the face cover of this, the album cover, is her on a beach. Not quite as beachy vibes as Lovers Rock, but still, you get the vibes. And when you hear a song like Give It Up or Keep Looking, I get transported. I don't know about you, but for me, it's obvious. Never Thought I'd See the Day as the penultimate song. Love the slowness, or love the subduedness of it. It's quiet, it's methodical, because then the curveball, and not the curveball at this point in their career, but the curveball is that the last track on the album is an instrumental. And I'm not going to attempt to say it because I've tried to say the title of this song for years, and I think I say it wrong all the time, so I'm not going to try. You can look it up if you want to. But the last song here is an instrumental track. And it's Sade once again coming back in and going, you know what? My band is killer. The fans might think that I'm just like the star of the show here, but they are amazing musicians, and I'm going to show them off. And she does. They fucking kill it on this song. And all the instrumental tracks in the career they kill. They're constantly doing things that are just phenomenal, amazing. Every, buzzword I can throw out that is just like how stupendous this band is. It's just great. It's great music. The whole thing's great. There's not a song on here I hate. There's not a song on here I really dislike. And again, it's only number 4 because when it comes to the next 3 albums, the tracks on those just kind of hit harder for me. And this is where I have to sort of upset some people, because there's some Sade fans who would put this record at number 1 and they would go, it's clearly number 1. There's no way it's not number 1. But for me, it's actually number 3. And that's their debut, Diamond Life. Yeah, the one that has Smooth Operator on it is my third favorite. It's not even my number 1. But here's the thing. This is kind of a perfect record. There's not really anything wrong with it. But when it comes to the next 2, I just have a softer spot for them. But we're not there yet. So again, you get the Sade triad. You open the record, and it's the first song people hear by Sade, Smooth Operator. I mean, what can possibly be said about this song? It's their biggest hit. It's the one song you've probably definitely heard by this band. Even if you don't know this band, you've definitely heard the song. I can only imagine putting myself in the shoes of anybody in whatever. I should know this, but it doesn't say the year. So 1984. I can only imagine being there in 1984 and hearing Smooth Operator for the first time and going, what the hell is that? Who is that singing? Because my God, what a statement to come out of there and just have Sade's voice and just like come out of the gate with that voice, and the band too. It's like, it's perfect. But we get Your Love Is King and Hang On To Your Love right after that. It's, again, like hugely popular Sade songs. I don't really know what to say other than they're amazing and they're great. I'd like to talk about the songs that are less popular, like Frankie's First Affair, the 4th song. And it's funny that this is not a single, but like it's as good. This is like a quadratical, whatever. I'm bad at math, but it's, as opposed to a triad, this is a quad. It's like the 4th song is, to me, just as great. Frankie's is underlooked, underappreciated, but I think it's great. When Am I Going to Make a Living? Cool song. Definitely the weakest track on side 1, but even then I think it's still great. And then you get side 2, and nobody talks about the songs on side 2, but can we talk about the songs on side 2 for a second? You get Cherry Pie, which, like, the vibes of this album, this is not beach vibes. This is like driving around in LA with the sunroof down, or in a convertible where there is no roof, like you're just driving through the streets. Listen to Cherry Pie, the song by Sade, and tell me that's not the vibe of just like driving through Sunset Strip, LA, that kind of vibe. Totally locks it, totally nails it. It's totally great. Then you get to Sally. And what I haven't talked about, except that one time on Soldier of Love, is what I'm going to talk about now, which is the sax inclusion. Cody made a comment, I think, on the Deep Purple or the Iron. It was one of the episodes. It might have been the Pink Floyd episode where he made the comment that every song should have sax in it. And at the time, I was like, what an absurd claim to make. And then you listen to Diamond Life and you go, yeah, sax should be on like every song ever in existence, because you get to Sally and you get the sax in tandem with the bass groove coming from Paul. Get out of here. It's literally just so good. Such a vibe setter. And of course the sax on Smooth Operator and other songs here, Your Love is King, like the sax is phenomenal. It's amazing. Like, I've been saying amazing a lot because I don't really have any other words to describe how good this band is, how good this music is. It's just fantastic. I Will Be Your Friend, Why Can't We Live Together? Again, stuff that's just great, especially Why We Can't Live Together, I think is a great closing track here. Like I said, there's nothing really wrong with this record. I think it kind of is perfect. I wouldn't change anything about it. For me personally, though, there's just songs on these next two records that just hit so much harder than the songs on here. Like, Smooth Operator is probably Sade's best song, but is it my favorite song by them? No, there is like 10 Sade songs I would put above Smooth Operator personally. And a lot of them are on these next two records. So yes, it is perfect. It's one of the greatest debuts of all time, just from like a statement standpoint and coming out of the gate and just like turning heads. But for me, it is number 3, whereas for some people it would be number 1. And for some others, this next record would be number 1. That's the sort of beauty of Sade, is that the top 3 that I'm getting to are typically the ones that are thrown at the number 1 spot. It's one of these 3. But for me, Promise is my second favorite. It is not my number 1. And I guess what I'll say about all these records and an introduction to Promise is that if you don't know Sade, this is not the kind of thing like the Chariot, which this most recent album Fight Club we did at the time of recording this sidebar. I would not recommend the Chariot to like 99% of people I know, because I know they're not going to like it. I would recommend Sade to just about 100% of the people I know, because even if you're not like a huge fan and this is not like the music you usually consume, I don't know how you can hate this, like at any level. Like, how can you not like this music? It's beyond me. It's sort of, I don't even understand it. Because you get yet another triad, for me at least. Some people wouldn't consider this a Sade triad, but I do. Is It a Crime? The Sweetest Taboo, and War of the Hearts. Maybe the strongest Sade triad in history, from my perspective. Now, Is It a Crime? I don't know what to say. Like, it's so good, and her performance on this is so good. And to think that she has this talent, and it's only their second record, and she's like mastered vocalizing in terms of like female artistry. It's just phenomenal. But then you get The Sweetest Taboo, which is like the sort of dissonance of Is It a Crime, which is a slow, kind of sad, kind of moody, like I miss you song. I wish you were still in my life. This, is it a crime that I still love you? And then you get The Sweetest Taboo, which is like, you give me the sweetest taboo. Our sex is like unreal. It's the sweetest taboo. I can't talk about it because it's like kind of dirty and wrong, but it's also like the sweetest thing. It's like, again, the dichotomy of Sade playing one lane and then immediately can flip and do the other one just as good. It's phenomenal. But maybe this is the most underrated Sade song. How do people not love War of the Hearts? War of the Hearts is so good. And the chorus where she talks, says, I'm loaded, that the way she says, like, I'm loaded, don't know where to point this thing. Just the approach she took, because she could have done it like 20 different ways, right? She could have done that line or any lines on these records like 20 different ways. And yet for every song, it just feels like she grasped and just nailed exactly what needed to happen for that song, for that moment, for the instrumentation. I love War of the Hearts. It was on an episode of Euphoria, I think. Yeah, I think it was Euphoria season 2. And the second it came on, I was like, oh my God, like I just need to listen to the whole discography again. I'm glad they chose that one and not like Smooth Operator or Is It a Crime, like the more popular ones. Play more of like the not so popular songs. War of the Hearts is amazing. And then you get Jezebel, which very sad song, very low methodical song, but also just so beautifully done. Like it's so hauntingly beautiful. I know I've said it 100 times, and I'll keep saying it, but like I don't know how to describe it other than it's beautiful. It just, in spite of the subject matter, it's just a song that is kind of a joy to listen to, which sounds awful when you look at the lyrics and then compare it to the song, but that's just how I feel, man. And that's side one. Like those 4 songs on side one is just a perfect side to a vinyl record. And then we flip it over and we get Mr. Wrong, which, to be fair, Mr. Wrong is not, like one of my favorites on here. The one that's actually my least favorite is Fear. Fear has always just been kind of the okay song to me. I like Mr. Wrong more than Fear, but both of those are kind of like the ones where I'm like, okay, if I had to get rid of 2 on this record, I'd pick these 2. But again, I wouldn't exactly get rid of them. Never as good as the first time. Like, have you heard the song? Because if you have heard the song, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's just amazing. It's so good. It's so like bereft of everything. Tar Baby, phenomenal, amazing. Vocals are just unreal in this song. And then you get Maureen, which it's sort of that never turn my back on you moment where like Maureen is very repetitive. It's like the same thing over and over and over again. And I love it. Like I love Maureen as a closer. I just really like this song. It's probably the guilty pleasure Sade song for me. I think there's a lot of Sade fans who think that Maureen's kind of just like repetitive and whatever. I love it. Like I love the song and I love this album. And what this album really does is like, is Diamond Life a more perfect record than Promise? Yeah, I think it is. I think it's just a tighter, more succinct, better overall record. But man, the songs that are like hits on this thing fucking hit, dude. Like they're so good. Is It a Crime, The Sweetest Taboo, War of the Hearts, Never as Good as the First Time. I'd have no problem putting all 4 of those songs in my top 10. Like they're all so good. For me, it's not a perfect record because we get to songs like Fear and I'm kind of like, okay. But just I think I would go to this one more than Diamond Life if it came to the end of the day. And if it was one of those like desert island situations, or doesn't quite make sense, far out island, a tropical island situation where you're on a deserted island. I think that's what I was going for, deserted island. If you're on a deserted island and they say, hey, you can only have 1 record, if they handed me Promise, I'd be like, sure, fine. If they handed me Diamond Life, I'd be like, okay, fine. But what I hope they would hand me is the one I have yet to talk about, which is my number 1 Sade record. And quite honestly, I think one of the greatest records of all time, especially in a certain vacuum. And if you know Sade, you know Love Deluxe. Good God, this album. Can we start by just talking about the album cover? Like I literally have this art. I don't know if it's art. I think it's actually just a picture and then it's, edited. I literally have this hanging in my wall in my living room, like a portrait of this. Cause it just like, man, it's so subdued. It's so minimalist. And yet it just says so much. It's so evocative. It's so suggestive of what this album is, which the sort of vacuum I mentioned is if you're talking about an album that you would put on to, not to get vulgar, but you would put on to set the mood, right? You've lit the candles, it's low lighting, you've got the glasses of wine out, and if you throw this thing on, there's only one thing that's going to happen, dude. And if it doesn't happen, like, I don't know what's wrong because something's off. When this record gets thrown on, it's game on. It is game on. It is go time because, man, this record just has a sound. It has a vibe, and the vibe is sex appeal. The vibe is I'm feeling things. The vibe is this sounds like it's from another planet. It sounds like heaven has opened. The angels recorded music and they said, here you go. You mere mortals, here's what we give you. Just listen to No Ordinary Love. It's the first song and oh, it's so good. It's so good. And just the concept of it and the fact that you and me, this is no ordinary love. Like people wish they had this kind of love. And also like the music video is just, it's so good. But you feel the vibe of this, and you feel it, like this sort of emotion and the passion of the band and Sade, and you hear this song. And again, if you're with your partner, something's probably going to happen. And if it doesn't happen, I question, the sort of nature of you and your partner, but like throw this on and see what happens. See if you don't get in the mood. And then we keep going from there. Feel no pain. Like, I couldn't love you more. It's one of those things where if you just listen to the record, like obviously I would recommend this one over all the others, because this one for me is just like by far and away my favorite. It really hits just the sort of vibe it's going for. And I've already elaborated on what that vibe is, but man, it just perfects it. And I haven't even gotten to my favorite song yet. But you keep going, you get Life Like a Tattoo, beautiful song. Kiss of Life, like gorgeous. Cherish the Day. Another thing about this record is that it's so varied. In spite of the fact that so much of it feels like the vibe I've been talking about, which is like low light, candlelit, wine is out, we're going to do something vibe. A lot of it's very varied. One song sounds totally different from the other, You get to a song like Cherish the Day, which sort of sounds like, I always tie it to like tropical island, like laying on the beach, or you're fishing off the coast of some tropical island somewhere. Just like bright sun, great temperature. You're wearing like beach clothes. You're just hanging out. It's a good day. Cherish the day, etc. It's just gorgeous. It's a gorgeous song. And then you get Pearls right after it, which is the totally opposite vibe. It's a very like dark, methodical, kind of sad song, and yet in spite of that, it's just like gorgeous. Even the lyrics on this song, which are kind of a downer if you really listen to them, still it just sounds so beautiful. It sounds so sultry and like gorgeous that I can't help but just see it in a certain light and see it in a certain way. But then you get Bulletproof Soul, which I'll say, and I'll go die on this hill, that it is like, I don't think there's a sexier song, like just to throw that word around. I don't think there's a more sultry, sexy song than Bulletproof Soul. The pianos, the sax, the way she just sings on it, and the vocal backing of, I forget the guy's name. I apologize that I don't know his name offhand, but whoever the male vocalist is that's like backing her up on this song, man, it's so, I mean, it literally gets me hot and bothered. Like it's so, I think I've elaborated enough. Bulletproof Soul is easily my number one Sade song. I could listen to that song forever and be fine. And then you get Mermaid, the closing track, which is like this gorgeous instrumental, just absolutely gorgeous. And it feels like the sort of sensibility of like being underwater or being near the water, and there's a mermaid around, whatever the hell that means. And maybe the mermaid, is like romantically driven. I don't know, but like, my God, does it just set a tone and a vibe and a sound, and it's brilliant and it's perfect. It's literally perfect. I think this record's more perfect than Soldier of Love. I would take this record over any of the other ones I just talked about, which seems rather obvious since it's my number one. I would take this record over a lot of the stuff in my life in terms of just music in general. This is a top 10 record for me. Top 5, I don't know. I don't know about that. I don't know if I'll go that far, but top 10, certainly. It's one of those records where if this was the only record I ever had for the rest of my life, I'd be fine. I'd be okay. Like, would I long for other music? Probably, but like, if I have this, I'm good. Like, this is the kind of artistry that makes me glad that I'm living and makes me glad I'm alive to experience it. I'm glad I lived a life, and I've had plenty of great things in my life, but one of those great things is hearing this record and having familiarity with this record, excuse me. And that's huge, lofty, philosophical bullshit that Mike's just throwing around about how artistry is so much better than, business or sports or whatever. But like, man, business doesn't make me feel this way. Sports doesn't make me feel this way. This makes me feel a certain way, which is just like so many emotions, so much positivity, so much radiance, so much aura exists on this piece of plastic, the vinyl, right? Whatever vinyl's made from. So much exists on vinyl, and we've captured it. We've captured it for all time. And 100 years from now, people can listen to this record and still feel the things that I feel when I listen to it in 2023, or the things I felt when I heard it for the first time. People will still feel that 100 years from now. And that's the beauty of art. When art is done well, it will outlive all of us, and it will affect people generations down the line. Love Deluxe does that. Sade does that. And for me, it's just so clear when you listen to a record like this, and all the records I've talked about up to this point. When you listen to these records, for me, it's abundantly clear why Sade is just like, you don't have to agree that she's the greatest female vocalist of all time. Like, I'll give you that. But I don't know how anybody can say that she, one, is not talented, two, not having a good backing band or the band's not talented, or three, that she's not in the upper echelon of vocalists. Just forget female or male, like forget the gender side of it, just like vocalists in music history. I think she deserves to be up there. And I've been going on for 40 minutes, so I believe it's clear why I think she deserves to be up there. If you don't know Sade or have not heard these records, please, this is the one time where I'll say definitely go listen. Like, all the stuff we do on Album Fight Club, like, you may not like it. Like, okay, if you don't like Metallica, Slayer, The Chariot, like, I get it. It's a certain vibe. It's a certain aggression. Sade, though, like, I don't understand how you couldn't like it. I don't know how people can't like it. And so if there's any group I'm going to talk about that I see in the foreseeable future or the past that we've talked about, this is the one where I say, please go listen to this. Because I think it can affect you like it's affected me. Maybe not as much as it has affected me, but I think you can get a lot out of it. And I think I'm just going to end it there. So thanks for listening. The next one probably won't be this type of music. I'll probably fall back into metal. But, you know, I had to talk about Sade at some point. I had to get it on recording so that maybe this could live way beyond. And 100 years from now, somebody can listen to my ranting and raving about Sade. Probably won't happen, and I'm okay with that. So long as Sade exists in the future, or her music exists, I'm cool with that. I can fade into obscurity and antiquity so long as Sade lives, and I'm sure she will. But anyway, I'm just rambling at this point. Thanks for listening, or thanks for watching if you watched it, and I'll see you on the next one.